Yeah, I was planning to do I was planning to do a Facebook Live on Monday because I was a little bit speechless on Friday because I know that Ebola has been in and out of the news the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I mean, ever since the 90s when they did that movie called Outbreak. And that was predictive programming that eventually we will deal with Ebola on our soil. Even though it came from Africa, why would we be dealing with Ebola on our soil at some point? Because we're in climate change. And when you're in climate change, the weather that is favorable to something like an Ebola, like over there in West Africa or the Congo, the weather in places where they're not used to aggressive frequencies and high heat might be dealing with something like an Ebola. And really, what is Ebola? Yeah, it's a microbe. Okay, it has a very specific makeup to it, and it also can be influenced to be extremely aggressive to the point where it causes such aggressive replication. And if the person already has or is incubating things of the like in the same family as Ebola, imagine when you're certain blood types and you get around people or you still have those things inside, and then aggressive frequency, it's even higher than we are experiencing today, then causes astronomical bloom. And then, yeah, when you have so much bloom, like filling up a balloon with so much water at a really fast rate versus a slow rate, the balloon bursts. That's what Ebola is when there's so much growth inside blood vessels that doesn't have the ability to escape the microbes don't have the ability to escape because of sluggish immune systems and sluggish filtration processes and stopped up filtration processes. That's why you get people breaking blood vessels. My issue when I was a kid was the bloody noses because my immune system was so on point that every single time I was attacked, and usually it was around climate change, spring allergy season and cold and flu season. And then I would be bleeding all the time through my nose. Well, how is that any different than when you watched that movie Outbreak back in the 1990s with Morgan Freeman? And a little segment of a population is dealing with something that's causing blood vessels breaking. Okay, and so when you think about the Antichrist, right? When you think about the Antichrist, people think it's like a person or a group of people. No, everyone holds the Antichrist within them. It's a matter of do they let that Antichrist come out and display itself to the point of it being brutal to other people. That's why those who say that somebody else is a demon or the devil or the Antichrist, and they're attacking somebody for their ideas, attacking somebody because they think they're the enemy, they're holding the Antichrist within their body because they allowed the darkness in their body to take over and manifest its intentions to search and destroy. Spybot search and destroy. Virus protector, right? And so I figured out that, yeah, what if Africa and the Congo came to you? Not so much the virus, because how do you get things, how do they contain that Ebola virus back in 2014, 2016, when it was in Dallas, Texas, or other places? Well, they quarantined the person, did whatever they did, used antibiotics or did other stuff. The person's microbes calmed down. They didn't test positive for it, okay, but they're still incubating it. And then it gets passed through the population. And then with this last climate change that we've dealt with, COVID-19, which basically is COVID-19 is COVID, SARS-CoV-2, severe acute respiratory situation system, whatever, syndrome. And it'll eventually be a type of Ebola descendant at some point in the future when all the conditions are right. You see, we all incubate the diseases that we get exposed to based upon our travels, the group settings that we go into, through all the diverse activity in the concerts, holidays. And so some blood types are more sensitive to some of these microbes that were laying dormant until the climate changed. And now things that are dormant are activated. And when they're activated, they're on the fucking move. And they do a search and destroy. Antigen antibody programming. Antichrist. And so Adam and Eve was like, when you think about the story, Adam and Eve, they're in that Garden of Eden completely like a child, oblivious to shame, oblivious to the knowledge of good and evil, oblivious to everything like a child, until they learn pain and suffering, until they learn actions and consequences, until they learn that the world is not what they thought. See, we have adults who are in their 30s and 40s. They're like little Adam and Eves out there, totally cured, under the influence, do not take responsibility for their actions, so they don't understand consequences really. Always doing the shortcuts. So they're like little naked running Adam and Eve around there, playing out there, playing with everything, playing with everybody. Maybe they have neurological issues. That's why you see such a rise in autism and neurodegeneration and neurodivergence, because the microbes are attacking them and didn't allow them to become mature and understand actions and consequences. And so they're like little Adam and Eve running around, not aware that eventually the devil will take his due. The Antichrist in their body, when you think about it, in everybody's bodies, that never faces the demon within, always using cures and surgeries, and wonder what's going on until the Antichrist comes and takes them out. That's what die suddenly is. And you could be therapized or not therapized. It doesn't even matter. When you try to keep disease at bay, we try to cut disease out of you. When you try to do anything to stop you from facing the consequences of your lifestyle, that's the Antichrist. And yeah, the bigger you are, when you think about it, that's more of the Antichrist within you, because that's a lot more diversity that eventually, when it's on the move, and it goes on the move, it'll take out vital organs. That's why morbid obesity is deadly, but then also not weighing enough so you can do that energy conversion and release the demons and still have something in reserve to keep you alive. When you're so skinny, you still have the Antichrist in you because you haven't figured out how to release that demon and still keep you around. Relatively coherent. So those that are cured, especially in this environment, cured in their activism, cured in their issues, always attacking somebody, always looking for the blame, always blaming somebody else in their activist stances. Yeah, they are the Antichrist when you think about it. Activism is like the Antichrist because you hold the demon within. You're not willing to release it because you've been taking your remedies, done your surgeries under the influence. And so how can you release the Antichrist if you don't give yourself some reserves to work with? But then you don't say it to people because people are like, oh, I'm not the freaking devil. I'm not the demon. Well, yeah, I know. I'm not trying to say that you are. But I'll tell you, the last 3 years, I was dealing with the Antichrist within me. That is the whole black and white checkerboard. You have light and you have darkness. As above, so below. The waking world and the dead world. And when you have so much darkness taking over you, causing the aging process, causing cancer, disease, and chronic illness, that's like the Antichrist taking you over. That's why they say Jesus is the light, right? I mean, I'm not religious. I wouldn't even say I follow the Bible per se. I understand allegory and stories. But there's a reason why they say Jesus is the light and Satan is the demon and then Lucifer. Then you're like, oh, shoot. Now you're comparing Jesus to Lucifer? Remember, knowledge of good and evil. When Adam and Eve disobeyed God, when you think about that story, and then they became aware of their nudity because they succumbed to temptation because that snake was like, hey, eat the apple. This is all allegory. Okay? And they became aware. They started reading. When you think about the apple, it's like when you're reading the internet and you're reading the conspiracy stories, you're reading another storyline. Now you're aware that there's another storyline. Now you realize that the old world that you thought you believed in is now gone. And now you're like, holy shit, life is not what you thought it was. The awakening process. And that happens in layers. Some people go through the awakening process and there's probably like 50 layers of it, but they only got to the 25th layer and they stopped there. That's a lot of the conspiracy world, a lot of the activists out there. They awoke up to a certain point and then they stopped waking up because they got cured or the awakening process was too much. They couldn't keep evolving. See, the whole J world was we have to keep peeling out the layers and layers, and people in the J world that I had to release that were next to me, they stopped at a certain point. They couldn't evolve even more so. And so I had to let people go or they dragged me down with them. And so now when I finally peel back all the layers, I realize now what the Antichrist is. It's not a who, it is in every single person. You are part Antichrist, part Christ, if you want to look at it from that point of view, from the Christian point of view. Now it's up to you to figure out, can you release the Antichrist out of you, or are you going to resist that and have that take over you and then keep blaming someone else? They're the Antichrist. People think that Prince William's the Antichrist. They think that Gates is the Antichrist. They think that Obama is the Antichrist. They thought maybe even Trump was the Antichrist. No. There are people that play a specific part. Some know more than others. Others were caught up in the game, like Trump was caught up in the game a long time ago. Obama caught up in the game, but he plays both sides and he understands. So does Michelle Obama. That's what Netflix is there to show you. So many layers and facets of society. And so, all of us are holding some kind of evil and some kind of goodness. And then being uncured, facing the pain, facing the suffering, feeding it, pulling out the freaking demons, then you become aware of what good and evil is because you finally feel it. That's how I'm able to get so smart. If you think I'm smart, maybe you think I'm dumb, I don't know. But lately, the last few weeks, I'm becoming smarter and smarter, and learning things is so much easier. And I'm putting all this shit together. But it takes layers and layers and layers of peeling back all that programming and not stopping at a certain point. And so yesterday I went out with my husband to go take care of some stuff with the truck that we bought. So we got out from another loan that was really crazy and got into a better loan for him. So we were doing that, and I'm walking into this dealership that's like so full of testosterone. Like you can cut that dealership with testosterone like a knife and serve it on a plate and be like full. And it was pretty cool. I mean, the people there were awesome. They were nice, but you can feel the testosterone. So I felt the testosterone, right? And I know that has aggressive energy, okay? So I'm breathing in that ectoplasm, not a big deal. Okay, that's just what happens. Go into a restaurant, stay there for about an hour, breathe in that ectoplasm. And that's all the activated spirits, all the activated plasma that you don't even see. All right, then I do that. I still hang out there, and I'm hanging out in my car with my husband. We're driving to different places. And so finally, when we get to that restaurant, we're done, and then we go home. I'm going home. I'm not going to go shopping for any food. We don't even need that much food anyways. I'm like, I got to go to, I couldn't wait because I felt my body getting bigger. See, I'm O positive, blood type O positive, which is optimal. O is optimal. And then the positive is when you're taking on everybody's dreams and nightmares and diseases. And since this environment is so activated, you are taking on people's demons, and they are coming. And since I have reinforced my immune system to the point where I'm able to condition up here to hold on to any kind of life that replicates and becomes offspring. It does, some makes it within my system, and others just stay up in here. And so then I feel like, a little bit underwater, but not all. I mean, I just felt uncomfortable because I was bloated, but I didn't feel bad. I did before we went. I felt kind of like that nervous energy, like almost like a little bit of anxiety before we left, because I knew it was really active yesterday because the wind was blowing. It was so crazy cold. But I got over it, took my shower and got dressed, and like, okay, I was feeling a little bit anxiety ridden. It disappeared as soon as I got in the car. But then, so after we did all that stuff, went to the dealership and went out to eat and took a drive up and down the freeway. Then I come home, I'm like, I gotta go to bed. I had to go to bed. Okay. And so going to bed, and I knew that, and I was up, I was like awake and up, and sometimes I'd be listening to stuff on the TV or on the Netflix, or listen to stuff on YouTube, and that's fine. And I'm up and down listening to videos about Trump, and listen to videos about the collapse and videos about stuff. But then I have a dream between, I would say 2 to about 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 hours of dead sleep, 4 hours. And I told you what that dream was on my Facebook. Okay? And it was just a mishmash of what you think about everybody else's ghosts, spirits, and microbes. And it's just, you can see the picture of what I put into the AI when I put in that whole dream sequence. And you see what it is that comes up. That's basically dreams, is when you have all these different weird memories put together, and they're connected, but they're not, because you're like, wow, that's kind of weird. That's the Great Reset. When you're watching what my dreams are, with all these swirling memories are in conflict with each other. Some is anger and violence and natural disasters and things that are like that violate the laws of physics, like flying unless the atmosphere calls for it, and then we have a certain prototype to allow flying. But I mean, that's what we're in right now. We're in a Great Reset. The dreams I'm having is like the Great Reset. It's chaos. And you have to be able to manage that chaos so it doesn't destroy you. And so we think about Ebola. When people are like, what is disease X? Yeah. Oh, that's coming. Because when you think about, what is Ebola? It's a microbe that's high frequency. Like again, COVID is COVID. It's just the cold to some blood types, but to others, even 10 years ago, COVID was a little bit deadly. That's why you had the heart attacks and strokes. Died suddenly is not new. It's just that the frequency of died suddenly is a little alarming for a lot of people, and it's hitting kids, it's hitting teenagers, it's hitting people in their 50s. The Hayflick limit, what is that? That's when the somatic cells that are not immortal are only able to redouble itself 50 times, and then it has to go to the next immortal germline cell. And so you think about people right now who are succumbing to this environment because they're holding the demons within. They're around their 50s. They're expiring around their 50s. And some are able to withstand that and surpass it, and then in their 60s and 70s, and they're good. But I'll tell you, if you knew everybody's blood type on your Facebook, you would see a pattern. But the reason why you don't know people's blood types is because they're not even aware they should know it, so they don't say it. All they're saying is, oh yeah, I'm feed or not feed. And that's not an indicator of whether or not someone's going to live or die. That's the smoke and mirrors. That was the arguments given to you, so you didn't understand blood type. Because once you understand blood type, then you understand why the V's were necessary for certain blood types. Then you'll see why some people are succumbing to this environment faster than others. And so Ebola, when you think about it, Ebola is when people are so full of those microbes and they don't have the strong blood vessels to be able to push that stuff through. Because I remember sneezing yesterday a few times and my arm hurt. Why is that? Because there's my lymph nodes. I have lymph nodes. Obviously, they're open now because I allowed them to be open. And the lymph nodes, then when I sneeze, because that's then a electrical force that either will push a shit down to my lower immune system or push the microbes through my lymph nodes. And sometimes it comes out my armpits. Okay? So with Ebola is when people do not condition their blood vessels and their lymph nodes to handle that kind of growth, to push it out. And they're on blood thinners. And a lot of people who are blood type A and B are on blood thinners. They get, what is it called? Deep vein thrombosis? Yeah, because you have really weak blood vessels. And so when you have really weak blood vessels and you're developing so much of that, of the sticky substance called so much clotting, okay? And then you're around people that cause then for the body to, well, you have antigen, so that antigen is now replicating faster, called clotting factors, and they have to be on blood thinners, so they're not reinforcing their blood vessels in a higher frequency environment, especially around people, and taking on their antigen because they don't have any antibodies, they don't have the weight to them. That's why people are dying suddenly. That's what I'm saying. blood type A and B are endangered. They have to change the way they do stuff. And they may even have to go get the V's. But if they're not releasing and they're blood type A and B, and they have not conditioned their body to release, and they're not eating all the food in the food supply, yeah, some of these blood type A and B who are also therapized, but don't make it. People do make correlation equals causation, and I couldn't say they couldn't make that as a factor. Of course, everything's a factor, but even blood type O's are not surviving in this environment because their release process is so shitty, pardon the pun, but it's not as shitty as it needs to be. The release process is stagnant. So they're becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until too much protection then causes die suddenly. You could be overprotected, you could be underprotected. And so the Antichrist is in everybody. You have to be the one to manage that. And so when people are going to their churches today, praying to whatever God they're praying to, and they're like, oh, I'm protected from the Antichrist because I have Jesus Christ, you hold it within. You're sharing that with everybody in the congregation. You're sharing your Antichrist with all of your friends and family as you're hanging out with them. You're sharing the Antichrist with your coworkers. I understand you have to go and work, okay? And some people's jobs, they're out in fresh air. They're not around too many people, so that's cool. They may have a chance to release those demons when they go home. Some people are in enclosed spaces. They're going to have to really release those demons, especially being in a closed space for 8 hours a day. Some people can work from home, and that's optimal. But if you are out in the public for 8 hours a day, you really have to be not only releasing those demons, but resting, eating, and maybe wondering, should you be working 40 hours? Maybe you should only be working 32 hours, 20 hours. Scale down your lifestyle so you don't have the public destroy you. Because I'll tell you, even me, being an O positive, as my husband is an O negative, I'm taking on the world's problems. And I have to release them. My husband, he is just built like a brick shit house. He's O negative. He can process stuff. I can't say that he'll end up being immortal because at some point it's going to catch up. When that shit catches up, will you have what it takes to handle everything catching up at once? Okay? And so when I go to these curse groups, like the AI groups, and it was so perfect, that image that someone developed through their Mid-Journey or Bing, shocking disaster hits London today. And you can see this big meteor coming in, and everybody's taking a picture of it. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks like a spermie. That looks like one of the orbs that come around you, right? And when I had those portals open a couple years ago, and you saw them flashing by my head, looking like little viral spermies, or what you think would be a sperm when it is trying to go and inseminate an egg. Well, what do you think those meteor showers are? Panspermia. What do you think that is? Those meteor showers are like things that seed the planet. Sometimes it causes a nuclear reaction and causes then a domino effect. And we heard what happens when meteors came and supposedly decimated the dinosaurs. But when you think about in your body, when you're out there with people and people's microbes are activated and they get into your body and they do damage like what that meteor would do to that area, that epicenter. And if you don't have a strong release process and a strong vital organs, people die fucking suddenly. What do you think happens when that meteor hits that epicenter and it's in a crowded area? The people in that vicinity die suddenly. So imagine when you're walking around not knowing your blood type, not understanding the world you live in, and you're all about praying to this and that, but you have a weak immune system and you're surrounding yourself by people with diverse company. When something gets in that's that aggressive in a high frequency environment such as this, athletes don't fucking survive, children don't survive, adults don't survive, compromised immune systems don't survive, and if you don't even know your blood type, that's like flying blind. I've been saying the last couple weeks, know your fucking blood type, because that'll tell you how then maybe you should conduct your life. But if you don't want to know, then when you see people drop like flies around you, be like, that's the rapture. That's Jesus bringing me home. That's the devil taking his due. You'll have every story based upon your belief system and lifestyle be justifying why people are dying around you, why your friends and family are succumbing to cancer, disease, and chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, or why they're thrashing in their sleep. Because they're being tortured by those little microbes inside. And they don't want to release. They don't want to change their life. And they're out for fame and fortune and all that stuff. And when you think about leading your life the same way you did before all this pandemic, in this environment, it's deadly. But again, people have to see the proof. Well, when you want to see the proof how deadly this environment is, it'll be too late. That's why it's good to have some kind of intelligence, intellectual capability to process science, to process information, even to understand another allegory besides your Bible. Understand there's allegory even in science that could be somewhat similar to your Bible. But the Antichrist is in everybody, even those who love Christ. They also hold the Antichrist within. But remember, when you're skinny or obese and you're denying that part of you, saying that you're all love and light, that's the Antichrist talking through you, saying, hey, you're in denial. I'm not letting you know that I'm here, so I'll pretend to be this thing. And then you can fool other people to think that you're some love and light, when in reality, you're destroying them with your microbes. And you're forcing yourself into their world as a microbes, and you are attacking other people. That's how deceptive the Antichrist is. So they come off as love and light. They come off as, I'm an empath. I'm, I'm your savior. That's why it's so dangerous listening to saviors out there, because it's the deception of the Antichrist. Tempting your friends, like that snake, to poor Adam and Eve. And when they finally got wind that they have consequences to their actions of succumbing to the temptation of the devil called the snake, then they're asked from the Garden of Eden, and now they have to pay the piper, the pain and the suffering of giving birth to the knowledge that they now have to pay back everything that God gave them. And that's why children were deemed as the devils and the demons way back when, but you really can't say that about children. Some children can fight that devil and release it and become whole people and law-abiding, peaceful people who aren't out to destroy through love, sex, and alcohol, drugs, and even religion. But they're up against a whole lot in this environment. It's the adults who have a better chance than the children, because the children will follow the parents, and the parents don't get it. The kids are not going to fucking get it. It's done with. And so it's the parents are the ones that are going to make or break their whole family. It's the parents that are going to make or break themselves. And even then, the parents always can't save their kids because their kids are not set up for this environment. I mean, it's pretty crazy what's going on. And so you hear from the Wall Street Journal.com is cancer striking more young people and doctors are alarmed and baffled. Yeah, they don't understand we're in climate change. People could say it's all the V's. The V's were around ever since day one, and they are representation of your friends and family. That's what the V's are. They're not that different than your friends and family. When you're breathing in all of their ectoplasm, all of their microbes, when you're sharing drinks and sharing food and sharing space, the mycoplasma, the opposing forces in the body take over. It's called cancer. It's called disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders. And in this environment, the younger people have a lot of them inside because they haven't figured out how to balance those two worlds yet. Because some parents are keeping food from their kids because they're so afraid of GMO and always into organic. Some parents have food issues, so the kids have food issues. And so cancer is striking more young people, and doctors are alarmed and baffled, as they should be, because doctors don't understand. We're in a different world now. What used to work 20 years ago, maybe, is not working today. And if it is, the time in between the diagnosis, the treatment, and then another diagnosis is shorter intervals in between each. And then it becomes a cumulative effect. Every single remedy that you use, every single treatment that you use becomes the actual demon against them later on. And people don't get that. Well, why should they? Why should they change? Why should they learn anything different? Because before, outsiders were demonized. And only their inner circle was the ones that they bowed down to. Now it's their inner circle that's going to destroy them. And the outsiders were like, holy shit, maybe they should be listening to the outsiders instead of demonizing them and saying, oh, they're stupid. And I've always been an outsider, looking into the inner circle of people, inner circle of families, inner circle of friends. And I'm seeing shit that they don't see because they're in it, and I'm an outsider, and I'm like, holy fuck, I can't do this. And so then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy on their end. Oh, she's an outsider. She can't fit in. She can't assimilate. So let's make sure she gets out. And I'm fine with that. I got the fuck out. I don't want to be in an inner circle of anyone because they're destroying each other. No evolution, no information, new information they want to take on, and everything about fame and fortune and here, let me be your savior. Yeah, we'll see how that works for you over time, if at all. And so Adam and Eve, knowledge of good and evil, uncured, pain, suffering, mature. Antichrist is the demons within which cannot be held back anymore. And you're finding people who are dying suddenly, the Antichrist is coming to take them because they never released that demon. They cured that demon within. They reinforced it with drugs, alcohol, sex, and cannabis and everything else. And I'm not knocking people. I understand you have issues and you're in pain. I get it. But you got to release that demon too. A little by little, like hold back on like, you know, was it transitioning off the drugs, transitioning off the alcohol, transitioning off the friends and family, transitioning off the pleasures and paradise, and start facing the fucking pain of consequences of your actions from the last how many years, and even paying for the sins of your parents, because they also pass some of those predisposed issues onto you, and you have to go and face that demon. It's not who is the Antichrist, it is what is the Antichrist, and it's the microbes that work against you. And so this article that I posted, Alec Mooser's heartbroken fiance breaks silence after Star was mysteriously found dead at age just 50. So 50 is the magic number. If you're 30 or 35, you better get some shit figured out pretty quick, because the faster this environment ramps up, 50 is 20 is going to be, 30 is going to be the new 50. People are not surviving their 30s, their 40s, obviously not their 50s. And some blood types are more susceptible to dying suddenly faster than other ones. And so I had that dream. Before you try to psychoanalyze my dreams, because some people will do that, try to interpret your dreams for you. I only dream like this after I've been out in the public the day before. I'm taking on people's ectoplasm. Their dreams, their nightmares, their struggles, even their diseases, I'm taking on, and I'm holding on to it temporarily. I'm like a vessel. When I walk into a crowded room, when I walk into a restaurant, when I walk into any kind of diverse space full of different people, and I'm taking on all of their fears, their hopes, their dreams, their microbes, their diseases, and I'm holding on to it. My body is activating. That's why I get bigger and bigger when I'm hanging out with different people. And then overnight, it processes. Some people cannot handle that process called reconciliation, so they die suddenly in their sleep, like heart attacks, strokes, and drowning in their own mucus. Other people will have the weirdest dreams. They'll be thrashing around in the middle of the night or talking to people. My husband talks to like some weird ghost in his dreams. He giggles too. It's funny. I'm like, I don't even want to know what the hell you're doing. But last night my dreams were like, holy crap. They were so vivid. And it was straight 4 hours of dead sleep. Usually the last few years, I've been up and down. The last year, the last 6 months, I've been more awake than asleep. And when I do go to sleep, sometimes it's in the middle of the day, sometimes at night, but I'll be more awake than I am asleep, which is why people are having insomnia, because their body is so activated with all the microbes inside trying to get out. And it's a fight between good and evil. And so I had these crazy ass dreams of flying and violence and reset and being lost in China, being lost somewhere, and being chased, and natural disasters, and even natural things that are going on, like green water, and people are swimming in green water. And so, yeah. So what did I say? I said then I have to release the next morning. So when I take on everybody's, microbes and dreams and nightmares, then I have to release the next morning. I survive it. I even wake up in the middle of the night going like, wow, what the hell was that? Through coughing. Sometimes I'll be sneezing, farting, blowing my nose, releasing the demons. Or else somebody else's memories, other people's memories will turn into the enemy that will try to take me over. That's what cancer is. That's what disease is. That's when people are attacking other people, because they're so full of the Antichrist in them that they either love you to death or they hate you to death. And that's how the system programmed us back in the 1960s, is that you have a Charles Manson that was all about hatred, and he was hurting people or getting other people to hurt people. Or you had his followers who were all about sex and love, and they were loving everyone to death. And that's where you had the Christian revival, because they took people's demons, so to speak, and channeled it through sex and love and religion, through sports, through war, through hatred. And that was also how they were able to not only strengthen you through resistance, but also the ones that couldn't handle the war. And they went in voluntarily, went into religion voluntarily. They went to, well, other wars voluntarily. Though the draft in the 1960s from the Vietnam War, with the weather warfare and Ebola stuff and all that, that was forced. And that's what the Weather Underground was resisting, was being forced into a situation they would not survive or come back extremely maimed. And so then they made the war voluntary. So now you had something to juxtaposition from the 1960s Vietnam War draft. So now people voluntarily going into religion, going into politics, going into science, going into the U.S. Air Force or the Navy or the Marines. And so they're voluntarily giving up their body, mind, and spirit and succumbing to the environment. And so when I was out in public yesterday, I felt like I was getting bloated and bigger. Okay, that's called possession disease. Came home around 4 p.m., went to bed around 6, just woke up on and off. Then this morning I woke up at 6:23, and I wake up around 4, 3 or 4 or 2. 6:23 is like sleeping in for me. After crazy dreams of flying, a little violence. So the violence was somehow I took some kind of cat o' nine tails. I don't know. That sounds right, S&M. And I hit, I guess, a person, and it showed white lines of where I hit him. And I used to notice when I go upstairs and I have this fear, like something's hitting me in the back of my legs. Like I had this memory of something hitting me in the back of my legs, like really hard, like a whip. I don't even know where the hell it comes from. But anyways, last night I was acting out something, and maybe it could have been from people that I was hanging out with for a minute in that showroom, at that Dodge Ram showroom, or at, the restaurant or some other place. But anyways, that was one sequence, and then the people were mad at me, maybe because of that. Then lost in China, lost in museums, calling my mom, asking for directions to the airport, lost my car, had shorts on, but lost my change of clothes, lost my pants, I don't know where the hell they went. Wanted to fly home and live with my parents and start over again. And I remember calling my mom going, can I live at home now? I need to start over again, right? And then like a great reset, wondering if the violence in China would carry over into the States. So I guess somehow I was in China committing violence with that person, maybe in the office too, because there was also an office sequence. But I was just like, oh. And then wondering if the violence in China would carry over to the States. Would they hold against me here in the United States, right? Called my mom again, no answer this time. Then flew away from people chasing me. And they were a bunch of, I would say, like Hispanic gang members. That was the weirdest thing, was that the people that were chasing me were like bald Hispanic gang members. And they could have been Norteño, Sereno, I don't know, whatever it was I was in contact with when I was in San Jose in California way back when, in the 80s. And then flew away from people chasing me over the top of their heads, right? So they were looking for me, and I'm on the top up here, like some white type of like stone building, and I'm flying above them. They're looking for me, and then I climb higher, into the clouds, and then I'm looking down, and there's kids playing in the water. I'm like, I wish I could play in that water. I was wishing to play in the water or go swimming, and I never did. But then I saw the pools of green water and never was able to swim in, and then flew away, and then that was the end. And so once I released all those demons, the last 7 years, even more so the last 3 years, going out in public is literally a trip. Like I'm tripping off of people. Imagine when you have relations with somebody and you're all getting off or whatever, and that you're tripping off each other. Because that's what it is when you're playing with your hormones with people. Whether you're in regular conversation or you're partying with them, drugs, alcohol, sex, you're playing with each other's hormones. You're literally tripping off each other. You're using each other as drugs. That's what happens when people get together. That's why people like to get together, because they're feeding off each other's reactions, the hormone plucking. And that's why it's hard for people to be on their own, because they're so used to that addiction of playing with others through the hormone reactions. And so going out in public is literally a trip. I am collecting people's memories, and they are assimilating with mine. And I'm telling you, some crazy shit happens in your dreams when your memories and their memories are colliding. So then you have the whole particle acceleration. When their memories and your memories are all now intermixing together, that's where you get all these mishmash cesspool of things that don't really connect, but they do, because then it looks like chaos. And yeah, you might be congested a little bit, maybe even coughing and sneezing and blowing your nose. Yeah, even farting. And so between midnight and 6 a.m., those memories are getting processed. The dreams are astronomically amazing. Flying, being chased. Somehow I'm always ending up in China. And that's also why the checkerboard. That's the Freemason checkerboard. There are two worlds inside your body. It's called the mycoplasma. Mycoplasma. Like, my coworker, my co-chair, my co-executive, what do you want to call it? My co-partner. I mean, that's redundant. But mycoplasma is you're sharing space with opposing forces that if you get out of control, then the system trains your dragons. The system trains your demons. The system finds a way to channel your energy through destructive means. The evil and the light, the waking world and the dead world, and it's a race between them. Make sure you're strong enough for the people in your waking world so you can be strong enough for microbes in the dead world. If you are fighting the people around you through medicine and remedies, even using jade juice, the microbes do get back at you. And that's the entities that try to take over, called cancer and disease. That's why people are so skinny or so obese, or that's why they're fighting disease. I only have these types of dreams after I go out in public. That should tell you something, guys. This environment is so aggressive. People's microbes are so activated, and they do get in. You have to make sure some of them get out. That's why you must know your blood type. You must know what you are in for. If you don't want to know, ignorance is bliss. And I'll tell you, some people would rather be ignorant than know what they're in for. Some don't want to know, and I don't blame you. It's like back when the AIDS came out, back in the 80s and 90s and whatever, and people are like, oh, you should go get tested. I'm like, I don't want to fucking get tested. I don't want to know. If I have AIDS and something happens, I'll deal with it then. But if nothing happens, whatever. But no matter what, people are incubating so many things inside of them because of their exposure. It doesn't mean that you have the actual HIV. You could be, what is it? Yeah, you don't have, you could be HIV positive, but not have AIDS. HIV positive, but not have AIDS. Well, then that's hard. How would you say that? If you can be HIV positive, but not have AIDS? Well, you could be a carrier. But even then, even if you don't trigger those tests and you're HIV negative, it doesn't mean that you don't have it. It just means that it's not coming up on a titer test. That's the thing. That's the deception about testing. It never says you never had it. Oh, you have particles of it. It's just not as numerous to come up as positive on a titer test. That's it. Everybody has been exposed to some form of Ebola because it's already brought here way back in 2014, 2016. The reason why it's not an epidemic because the frequencies in the environment aren't waking it up. We don't have the Congo here, but what happens when we finally have the Congo or a type of temperature and frequency that the Congo holds, and it's called global warming in your town? And it could be for just one season, spring and summer. You could have the Congo and the Ebola virus for one spring and one summer, or even winter. It just depends on the frequencies. So I'm saying, you got to know your blood type, but whatever. Anyways, you must know what you're in for. Because once you know, you cannot unknow. You'll know your fate. Male O negatives probably don't feel what O positive feels like. There are females who are O negs feeling what I'm feeling. Blood type A and B, you guys are endangered and you don't know if you don't feel anything. If you feel something, it means you have a chance. And every single time you remedy away or surgically take out feelings, you take out the intelligence of your body to keep you alive. If you are skinny, you'll have a problem feeling something. Even skinny people who are right now being tortured, they're going through one procedure after another procedure after another procedure. I'm telling you, the last 3 years, when people were losing lots of weight, that was the environment working against them. They could be probably blood type A and B because the environment was taken away from the principle. They had no reserves to work with. And so right now, no treatments are working because the more they get treated, the more they reinforce the devil within. When you run away from your feelings, they come back to haunt you. That's why you don't want to be cured, because the sooner you face whatever's in you, the easier it will be to release whatever gets in later. But the issue is people's retroactive release process will be a bitch if they can even survive it. Procrastination never wins. Sooner or later, everything comes out in the wash. Okay? And so Ebola is going to be the Antichrist. Ebola is the Antichrist. Everything is going back to Africa. Okay? When we have to compete with the Africans as far as their climate and their microbes. And so the whole thing with Burning Man. And when I figured out that Zion in the Matrix Reloaded or Unloaded, I forget which one that is, the fourth Matrix, third. And they were all dancing. It was a really like a hypnotic dancing. Very sexually suggestive. Bare feet in mud. And you think about Burning Man, bare feet in mud, exploring sexual identity. That's what Burning Man was. This came out of San Francisco. People in San Francisco, California, exploring sexuality. Why were they exploring sexuality? Whether it's gay, straight, or trans, lesbian, whatever. It's about mixing microbes. It didn't have to be turn into a baby. It'll turn into, I would say, an aggressive microbe. That both gay, straight, and lesbian all mix together when they hang out in diverse company, in raves, in religious group gatherings, in activist gatherings. When you're out there, football, going to concerts, when you have huge groups of people hanging out with birthday parties and holiday traditions. It's not just, it's the Burning Man people that are doing it. That's just one aspect. That's just a big one. That's obvious that the Illuminati people who are like tracking the Illuminati, like Mr. Donut guy back in September, when he was doing the whole, exposing that whole side of the Burning Man. It's even those that go into huge congregations. When you're going to mass, when you're going to, some of these places, like when you're bowing to your Allah, you're bowing to Christ, bowing to Moses, or not Moses, but going to your congregations. When you're hanging out with diverse people, in groups, drinking, smoking, doing drugs, having sex, having a bunch of kids hang out together, sleepovers and pizza parties. No one can say that their group mentality is any better than anybody else's. You're mixing microbes. You're developing the Antichrist within you. And then you have people going out there and accusing people of being the Antichrist. Oh, you're making the one in you stronger. That's the irony of all of it. So the collapse has begun. People don't know what's coming. Ray Dalio's. And so I did the Facebook Reels about the Vietnam War and Ebola. And of course, the microbes, the Antichrist. That's why the black and white checkerboard, I let the dark part of my world control me until I released that demon. That was a few years ago. It's not like it's 100% gone, but it doesn't control me. Because that's your protection. You got to have a little bit of darkness within you, or else you walk into a freaking situation that you can't get out of. You got to know who the enemy is. And when I don't go out there in public a lot, in really diverse situations, I know exactly what I'm dealing with. Because I have the enemy within me, but it doesn't control me. It's just my indicator. I don't walk out after midnight in some parts of my town because I'm not stupid. The microbes in me that run my adrenal glands, they let me know, hey, it's probably better that you don't go out there, in this side of town after midnight, because there's some creepers out there that you don't want to deal with in a dark alley. I let the dark part of my world control. I let the dark part of my world control me until I release that demon. It's not like it's 100% gone, but it doesn't control me because it is my protection. And when you are so skinny, that demon is controlling you. When you gain the weight, you have better control. How many girls who want to be hot and whatever don't want to gain the weight, so they're controlled by that demon? Or they're starving because they don't have access to food, because food is poison to them, or they're allergic to everything. Yeah. The darkness can be a protection, but don't let it be overprotective and destroy. That's why people harbor the darkness within and they let it destroy them, and then they try to destroy others. Acknowledge your darkness, but don't let it control you and destroy others. Save yourself. And so I dare those who are all love and light to finally acknowledge they do have darkness within. They have the devil within them. And the devil is using their light to deceive others. That's why you have to understand you can't play the side that you're all love and light, because that love and light could also be Lucifer, deceiving you and everyone around you. And then you're giving them all your microbes. I'm telling you, the world is not what you think. And that's why I'm like, I don't care what you say, what you believe in. When you're on your own, when you're by yourself and you're facing your own darkness, and you're facing that in your bedroom, when you're coughing out the demon within, when you feel that presence in your room because you finally released that spirit, that one of those spirits. And then when you can hardly move, like I couldn't a couple years ago, when I had that mycoplasma, web-like substance that took me down for a week. And even then it took me a month to get over it. And I'm pulling out the freaking demons out of my butthole because all the poop. Then you'll realize that's what is controlling you. That's what's deceiving you. That's what's causing you to destroy others. Then you realize that no one else there is the demon out there. They have their own bullshit to deal with them through themselves. We all have the Antichrist within us. Even if you're Muslim, you have the Antichrist within you. You have to release that demon. Hold on. Your resistance to disease in a higher frequency environment developed the Antichrist. Period. All of us had a hand in it. I acknowledge my hand in resistance and suffered the last 3 years and 7 years trying to change and introduce change. The suffering was the payment or payment system. So I pulled back. I stayed home, stayed safe, stopped treating disease, and coughed out the demons, ate food, and I'm not greedy for fame, fortune, or riches. The curse I must endure today is watching everyone else come to terms with their participation in this global crisis called the microbial Antichrist, made to be stronger with each frequency increase and diverse company people keep. All of us have the Antichrist in us. Some of us are in denial. But I tamed the Antichrist in me and released it, but it was a battle. And I will never harbor anything like that in myself again, ever. And that's why you saw the checkerboard square with that crystal ball and the background that looks like an 80s type of design with the two columns. Very Freemason. Rosicrucian. And so there you go. That video of the Matrix Reloaded 4000 Zion dance, fluke. Yeah, that was right there. That's what told me everything. I do not live in fear. I live in reality because I am not cured or under the influence of anything. Never misunderstand my intentions. The system was trying to warn all of us, and people resisted, as did I, until I felt what was going on in my immune system because I fought that demon in me 2 years ago. What I experienced 2 years ago is what people are dying from right now, as they are treating themselves and starving themselves to death. When you can look the devil in the eye and say, "Not today, Satan," you know what formidable demons are in people in absolute denial. And I'm sure so much drugs and cannabis are involved with dance clubs and rituals. Below is Burning Man, which is basically the Zion stuff. A representation of people mixing microbes in complete denial. All of your concerts, get-togethers is like a matrix dance of Zion, making the devil stronger. People aren't surviving how aggressive these demons are in people. Yeah, the world is not what you think. Why do you think everyone was mostly black and white in this segment of the film? But it looks like everyone was black. And of course, in all forms of sexual congress. Dancing in mud, bare feet, mixing microbes. Africa, they are the equalizers. Ebola is the equalizer. Going back to Africa, where it all began. Burning Man was an extreme ritual of the rich children who will be sacrificed through the microbes, and they'll be carriers to destroy their bloodlines. All of you out there mixing in diverse company thinking that you are immune to the world, you are now major carriers. You're being used as a tool. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. The world's not what you think. Start making changes if you want to survive, or you can fancy yourself to be one of these people dancing their life away. Everything is about ritual. I just shake my head because I saw this 3 years ago. I felt it. Okay? And so Ebola in America, timeline of the deadly virus. The manipulation and deception of proof. That's the deception of proof. Once you see it's too late. You want the truth, proof, you can't handle it. Some of you can, but most of you can't. How did they control the Ebola virus outbreak back in 2014 and 16? They quarantined the persons. And the reason why it didn't spread is because the frequencies were not aggressive. They weren't favorable for those conditions. Okay? They were not favorable to making it go viral. Frequencies are everything. So when people were having their reactions to the J World J Juice stuff, people's frequencies were at a higher level, higher pitched level. It caused my information to go viral in 2017, 2018. Frequencies are everything. Frequencies can give life to somebody or make them calm down. Frequency is what made our COVID aggressive because COVID has been around. Strong blood types like O negative, COVID was just a cold. Other blood types, COVID was just a heart attack, a stroke, or died suddenly. All remedies and therapies made everything worse. I mean, all of them. Even your holistic friends had made things worse. All the recommendations you're giving to your friends to stop the body from releasing and developing new offspring has made it worse. When people say that your body has the ability to heal by itself, no, it doesn't. It needs food. When people say your body has the ability to heal by itself, no, it doesn't. It needs all food. And it needs you to help release those demons because you've conditioned your body to hold on to everything. So even those that are trying to disengage from the matrix, so to speak, from the holistic allopathic, still are somewhere in there thinking that if they do nothing and still keep with what they're doing, because they have allergies or they have issues, they think their body can just heal. It needs food, it needs release. But what kind of release? What kind of food? All food. What kind of release? Well, that's... You can't use my juice anymore because you'll be cured in this ionic environment. And when you're cured, you get constipated. When you get constipated, that's when people have issues. They become highly resistant and then die suddenly. Before you scapegoat anyone, you better look in your own backyard. Better look at what hand you dealt your friends and family because you thought you knew better. Stop blaming Gates and Dr. Fauci. They were used as a scapegoat because they were paid very well for it. They didn't realize, maybe they did, who knows? What do people know and when do they know it? You don't know what Dr. Fauci knew. You don't know what Bill Gates knew. You just knew that they were trying to help people with the antibodies for those who were deficient, who were vulnerable, the blood type A's and B's. And blood type O couldn't hurt getting more antibodies, but you'd have to release the demons. And that was not their responsibility to help you release demons because they had the surgeries. When it got that bad, they could just carve out the demons from you or give you whatever they give you to help you release those demons. But even then, that wasn't enough because you kept taking things to stop your body from releasing. And so you were in conflict with your own self. It was the frequencies and your denial and resistance is what made things worse. COVID was only deadly when the frequencies changed, called climate change. If you still want to deny climate change, go hang out with everybody and mix microbes. Hold on to the demons and treat yourself to death. There's always another way. There's always another way to survive. It's not always the old way. Some traditions need to be cast to the wayside. It was never supposed to be forever. I'm trying to give you a clue. Many of you don't even know your blood type and you're flying blind. And so I do not look forward to spring and summer in the northern hemisphere. It's going to be deadly for many, if not already, during this wintertime. Remember disease X? It's bad. It's too bad people want to wait for the proof because before they actually change the way they do shit, they may not even survive. Some things I don't need to see proof because I can process science and manipulation. I don't need proof that drinking pine sol is deadly. Yeah, it is because it's antibiotic. When you're drinking an antibiotic, to use a probiotic, how aggressive is it? It'll cause so much antibodies that it might even clog up your capillaries and arteries and cause a diet suddenly. You don't drink things that are not intended for you to drink. Antibiotics have to be approved by the FDA to see how aggressive your body will develop offspring from that. So some things I don't need to see proof because I can process science and manipulation. If your whole life is predicated upon seeing proof of anything, I hope it's not your children. I hope it's not you. I hope it's not your friends and family. But sadly, there'll be proof to you if you even survive. That's the deception of proof. Once you see, it's too late. And so, all right. The denial of climate change is their power. Some people would not go to the Congo because they could not handle the microbes of the heat or the heat. What if the Congo came to you? What if all of its microbes came to you and grew so fast in your blood that you bleed from all orifices? The fact that I have hives and it doesn't burst my blood vessels says I have strong cardiovascular system. I don't have hives, but I might tomorrow morning. The fact when I get hives and I don't get a heart attack or a stroke says everything. The fact that I get hives and my immune system allows me to cough and sneeze and blow my nose and poop the growth out says I can handle aggressive growth and aggressive climate change. Some of you probably can't say the same thing because you get treated for everything. You have low tolerance for symptoms and pain, and you won't change your lifestyle. Before you laugh at my information, you better check what your adaptabilities are. I'm trying to save your life with information so you can save your ass, save yourself. I will be able to handle whatever situation will come, so as long as I have access to food. Imagine someone around you falling victim to blood vessels popping and they bleed and hemorrhage to death. You would not be laughing. So what is relative humidity and temperature? Okay, so I remember I talked to my husband about, the temperature outside and temperature inside, and how the temperature inside is not the same as the temperature outside. It's all relative. What I feel is relative to what the temperature is inside, relative to what's outside. Okay? And so because it's 72 degrees inside does not mean, or obviously it's 72 degrees outside. But I noticed that when it's so cold outside, then even, when it's so cold outside, let's say it's 11 degrees, then if it's like usually 32 degrees, my thermostat says it's 60, says it's, 68, 67, right? If it's 32 degrees, 69. But if it's like 11 degrees, then my thermostat will go up to like 70 or 71. Okay? And so everything is relative. And so if we're in climate change and we have frequencies coming through and you're uncured, but if you're even cured or uncured, it doesn't matter. The frequencies are changing things. And so you think it is 60 degrees outside or it's 80 degrees outside, but it's actually hotter because the frequencies are higher. But you don't really feel it because maybe you're under the influence. And if you do feel it, then you think it's something else. But you don't realize that during this climate change, Ebola virus, especially when the frequencies increase, the Ebola virus could actually flourish during frequency shifts, during the climate change, because everything is relative. That's what you don't get. That's what people don't get. And so relative humidity and temperature. What you set your thermostat to now and in this environment will be the difference between somebody passing away sooner or later. Someone was laughing at that. When you set your thermostat lower, you might actually save yourself from clots and strokes. And that's probably true because the frequencies are such, climate change is such. And if your thermostat hasn't really taken into account the climate change and the frequencies and all that, then you could be developing a rapid growth because it's hotter in your house. Okay? And so, yeah, in environments such as this, and it's hotter outside or cooler outside, whatever it is, lowering your temperature might actually help you out. But I don't know how you'd know to do that, but it's relative humidity and temperature. What you set your thermostat to now and in this environment will be the difference between somebody passing away sooner or later. The Ebola virus can only thrive in temperatures where it originated from in the Western Congo. Global warming is when the springtime and summertime and the relative heat and humidity is more than what people expect. I'm even warmer, running warmer, and it's cold outside. A few years ago, I ran very cold and it was negative 11 degrees outside. Now I run very hot, extremely hot, and it's still negative 11 outside. Okay? Or what it feels like, the wind chill factor. I'm uncured. I notice growth in hives when I get around diverse company, and then I release. I'm fucking smarter than I was before, but you will find out that Ebola virus will thrive in areas that are friendly to its existence. Relative humidity and heat, along with all the frequencies, and then people are turning their thermostat up and down relative to the outside temperature or how they feel. I don't look at the temperature and then turn my thermostat up or down. See, that's the thing, is that with all the climate change and the frequencies and then the relative humidity and heat, and people are turning everything up and down because of what they feel, or that it's like they're all confused. A few years ago, I ran so hot, I had to keep turning my thermostat down in the wintertime, basically like air conditioning. Now I run warm, but not so hot, and I don't have to turn my thermostat up or down, but I do feel the heat. Now I could turn it down, but my husband gets cold. Okay, so I don't want to make him cold, and so I'd rather have the growth and release it than him have to use so much energy to keep himself warm. I don't want him burning too much of his resources, so I keep it warmer for him, and I'll just deal with the growth. See how that works? That's such a trip. Okay, I didn't even think about that until now. But the virus, oh God, dry skin. The virus was introduced in 2014 and 16 in America, Dallas, Texas, and other places across the world outside of Africa. Just wait. People want to laugh about stuff now. Wait. A temperature scale in which measurement are amounts that are more or less than a reference amount. That's relative temperature. Okay? A temperature scale in which measurements are amounts that are more or less than a reference amount. In the Celsius scale, for example, the reference amount is set at the freezing point of water, or 0. Other measurements are made of relative to this point. Relative temperature scales have both positive and negative numbers. The Celsius scale and the Fahrenheit scale are relative temperature scales. Compare absolute temperature scales. Okay, so Northern Democratic Republic of Congo, the Ebola River, also commonly known by its Negabandi name Ebola, the headstream of the Mongola River, a tributary of the Congo River in Northern Democratic Republic of the Congo, is roughly 250 kilometers in length, or 160 miles. Over most of the country, an annual average temperature range between the high 60s and 80s Fahrenheit, low and high 20s Celsius. Although in the south, the cooling effect of the Benguela current may produce temperatures as low as the mid-50s. Okay? And so it's favorable conditions for Ebola. Ebola may have lingered in a survivor for 5 years or more before sparking a new outbreak. So imagine people out there are incubating Ebola in their body and you don't even know it. That's what's crazy. And then Penny was saying basically 50 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, spring weather. Scary stuff. She's absolutely right. And then the whole thing with this, that's absolute zero. That's the 0 Kelvin. What is it? 0, yeah, Kelvin. Before you play the game of copying Hollywood, I see people that play with on their Facebook and they're doing all this glamour shit, right? And they're doing all their photographs. They're like this and like this, and they think they're being like, you know, with the times and the glamour shit. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And they're just some regular schmo. They're not part of Hollywood or some, you know, but they're copying. They're like literally mimicking fashion magazines as if they think that that's going to be, I don't know, they think that makes them in or something. Do you know what that means? Know what this means? What this means? People say Illuminati. Okay, well, whatever. But it's more than that. It's physics. It's chemistry. Before you play the game of copying Hollywood with their hand gestures, those of you who are all about the mainstream and all the bullshit, better make sure you know what the kind of signs and spells you're casting on your people. Okay? Bunch of posers out there. that want to be famous, that want to be an influencer. They think that beauty and sexuality is how they're going to be, is how they're going to make their money. What is it called? Virtual or visual prostitution? They're all over Facebook. Visual prostitutes. It's pretty crazy. And they're copying all the magazine ads, trying to look hot like all those chicks in the modeling industry. Absolute zero is death. The absolute temperature scale is one in which the zero of temperature is equal to absolute zero, the coldest possible temperature at which there is no internal energy and the particles are stationary. Absolute temperature is measured in Kelvin. Okay. Absolute zero, that's death. And we have girls out there, virtual prostitutes, are doing this shit, playing all the one-eyed bullshit. Kelvin is used globally as part of the international system of units. It is one of the 7 base units of the system. The value of absolute temperature is okay. The Kelvin, symbol K, is a unit of measurement for temperature. The Kelvin scale is an absolute scale which is defined such as OK is absolute zero, and the change of thermodynamics temperature T by 1 Kelvin corresponds to a change of the thermal energy KT by 1.30649 times 10 dash 23J. Is that joules? I don't know. Absolute temperature is a temperature measurement on a scale where at zero is absolute zero. It's also known as thermodynamics temperature. And remember, the third law of entropy is when everything's at absolute zero, being cured. And so now you have all these influencers out there. Influencers are all sexual and hot, or all about their religion and stuff. Doing this, playing the games with the hand symbols, throwing signs at people. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Bunch of copycats. Posers. And they're casting spells on their friends and family. Oh, and they have to look hot in the meantime doing it. Sorry, I don't play that game. Carriers. Once Ebola gets introduced into the population, it's in the population. It just takes a certain frequency to wake it up. COVID was already in the population, but it became really aggressive in 2019 to now. Why? Because of frequency. Africa has specific frequencies and heat to be able to develop Ebola viruses. We will be competing with Africa at the micro level. If outbreaks can happen in Africa, you can only imagine what will happen in the West. You better start conditioning now. And so, what blood types got to do with clot risk, or what's the most sensitive blood type to something like Ebola? Blood type A and B. But the biggest difference has to do with the blood clots in the veins. Compared to people with blood type O, individuals in blood type A and B groups were 51% more likely to develop deep vein thrombosis and 47% more likely to develop a pulmonary embolism. That's why blood type A and B really need to be careful. If you don't know your blood type, you're flying blind. And so someone said, no one gets out here alive, right? No one here gets out alive, allegedly by Mr. Morrison, whatever his name is, Jim Morrison. And I'm like, so you not get out, you stay in and live. You see the spells they cast on you even in the 1960s? I'm not trying to leave Earth. If you're trying to leave Earth, you won't make it out alive. That's called the rapture. Blood thinners, yeah. And that's why I fed all the headaches, steak, and meat. Because when you get the headaches, remember I got those headaches a couple years ago? And it was throbbing. Oh, that could have been a died suddenly. That could have been an aneurysm or a stroke. It didn't. It was just a major headache. But to some people, they get major headaches and they don't survive it. They die. Some people who are strong like me, blood type O, who had the last 7 years of conditioning, was able to deal with a headache, and then I fed it the meat. When I see people say, oh, look, I'm eating meatless. Everything is all about salad and no gluten and no this, no that. I'm just eating lettuce. Their blood vessels are weak. They probably will not survive something like a climate change with an aggressive microbe inside of them. And the more you weigh, the more diversity you hold within, the more you starve yourself and only eating salad, the weaker you'll become and the more susceptible you will not survive a climate change and energy shift. And those on blood thinners are already compromised because they never condition their heart and their blood vessels to pump the blood and force out what needs to be forced out. That's why I dealt with these heart palpitations with headaches and fed them and released the demons. I never stopped my body from releasing. Survival is conditioning. It's not all the exercise. Just sitting with that heart palpitations is giving your body the conditioning to pump back and forth. It strengthens your blood vessels. And then you have to keep eating proteins and things to make sure that you align your blood vessels with more amino acids and proteins and electrolytes and fat. Because right now you're watching athletes die suddenly because they're so resistant, because they're full of muscle, hardly any fat. And even skinny marathon runners. It's being able to handle an aggressive environment internally and externally. And you're going to find many are not conditioned for aggressive environments because they resisted evolution. I'll read this. One more thing. Stroke, brain bleed, hemorrhage, fevers all lead up to something like an Ebola when many people are affected, not just the minority. Pandemics are when everyone is affected and some die suddenly. Viruses are all about frequency. Different names, different frequencies equals how many are affected, dying suddenly in hospital. People cannot afford to starve themselves or of meat, milk, cheese, and eggs. But again, you cannot help people already in major deficit. But you learn what not to do and what to do. That's why I get mad at those who are all on these diets telling people to starve themselves of food and meat and milk and cheese. They're starving their audience, making them weaker as well as themselves. It's not my problem that those are the ones who will be compromised when all the conditions are right, because they are starving. They are in major resistance and they can't change for the life of them. And they hope to take everyone down with them because misery likes company. That's why I get mad at all of you who tell people to stay away from food. That's why I get mad at all of you who tell people that food is poison. But again, that's not my problem. If people don't know any better and they starve themselves, that's on them. But no, I don't relate to you. I can't relate to you. And I cannot say that I'm happy you're starving yourself or of meat, milk, cheese, and eggs. That's also why I'm not religious. I'm not letting any religious person tell me that food is poison, whether it's pig or anything else. That's why they're starving and deteriorating rapidly. Because blood vessels can't help you. Blood vessels can't help you keep your blood inside of you when you starve them of necessary amino acids. Your heart can't handle being starved to death. You have weakened your cardiovascular system by starving yourself through starvation diets. And then last thing for today. The last 3 years should have been your conditioning process to handle a more aggressive environment. You should have changed the way you did things so you could survive. Unfortunately, most people are in resistance to the detriment of themselves. Now we wait and watch. Remember Burning Man? And someone was found bleeding from the ear, nose, and throat frequency, all those musical frequencies and sharing microbes and drug use. They put people's demons on steroids. That's why Burning Man is a ritual. Conjuring up the dead in a high frequency environment, and people bring home so many diseases. Remember the rumors that there was an Ebola, that they had to dispel the rumors? It's only Ebola if there are more people succumbing to that type of symptoms. Everyone was sharing microbes, making those demons inside people stronger and more aggressive, laying the groundwork. Of course, all the drugs use and everything else. Oh yeah, oh my gosh, people forget Burning Man. I didn't forget. Yep, all your occultic, entertainment, concert, religious behavior just makes the demons stronger within people, and then people are seated with so much opposing forces, they can't handle the energy conversion of release when all the conditions are right. And so global warming means that one side of the hemisphere is burning up while the other side is freezing, extreme temperatures. So when you're at negative 50 and you're saying over there, like wherever, you're saying, oh yeah, there's no such thing as global warming. Yeah, well, imagine what the southern hemisphere is dealing with right now. And then when we're burning up and Australia is under a deep freeze, that's also global warming. It's called extreme temperatures. I understand which hemisphere you're in. EMP, or electromagnetic pulse. An electromagnetic pulse, EMP, also referred to as transient electromagnetic disturbance, or TED, is a brief burst of electromagnetic energy. Some won't survive it, which is why you must eat all food to and release the demons. EMPs are not just about taking out your internet or electricity or stoplights or even your Tesla. EMPs can take out humans, compromised humans. Why do you think I hear a ringing of my ears every so often when the frequencies change? EMPs. And I said that yesterday. Oh, yeah. God damn. By the way, I had hives yesterday, and the frequencies, or Friday, are insane, and my downloads are on point. And I hear sirens. Okay, and then frequencies are what activates aggressive growth. Blood vessels burst, which is why all food is necessary. Okay, blood vessels, I'm no doctor. Whatever, okay. What is disease X? Okay, and there's that. Your resistance to disease and pain is their power. Okay. Don't let your peers destroy you. Stop taking advice from your peers. But I guess if you can't make your own decisions, good luck. Oh, God. Okay. All right. Everything's kind of repeat. So there you go. But what is Ebola? All right. Ebola virus, frequency and microbes, requires medical diagnosis. Initial symptoms include fever, headache, muscle pain, chills. Later, a person may experience internal bleeding, resulting in vomiting or coughing up blood. People may experience pain in areas like the abdomen, chest, joints, or muscles, whole body, chills, dehydration, fatigue, fever, loss of appetite, malaise, sweating. I'm thinking, like, have I been dealing with Ebola the last freaking 3 years? If I were to go by my symptoms on this, I would say I had Ebola for the last 3 fucking years. So that ought to tell you something, that really these disease names are the frequency and what they affect and the manifestations. Gastrointestinal, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting blood, also common, coughing up blood, eye redness, headache, mental confusion, red spots on skin. Remember when I took that sulfa for a UTI back when I was 19 years old, and I had this red rash come up. Yeah, blood vessels were popping because I was allergic to that sulfa. Yeah. And so disease X is going to be a higher frequency, and people who are compromised will not be able to handle the growth, and it will burst their blood vessels, and they will bleed from all orifices. That's what Ebola is. Yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting the microbe. That microbe looks a little on steroids, doesn't it? Yeah, that came out of the Congo. It mixed in with the general population out there, with the blood types out there, and the culture and the frequencies. And that's why they say go get a V or vaccine when you go to different countries, so you can sort of assimilate to that environment. Wait till that comes to your doorstep. Wow. So what's the Antichrist? It's when all the population is under a aggressive frequency, and it makes that offspring, that microbe, so astronomically, insanely transmissible and aggressive that people don't survive. Good luck.